You got to embrace being a creator and influential person.
Yeah. No, what I'm embracing, honestly, leaning into is just the difference between being a creator and a consumer. That's it. I've spent so much time just consuming mindlessly. Mm-hmm. But when I take that exact same time that I would scroll, because 5 minutes on freaking X turns into 45 minutes really easy. Mm-hmm. Right. And then sometimes I'm like, what the heck just happened? Like, I'm like, I don't even realize that it happened to me. And so I'm trying to get out of that. And so now I'll just pull up my Google Doc and start writing. And right now, 5 minutes of writing is turning into 45 minutes. It just starts flowing. And so after 45 minutes of doing each, I feel so good after writing. And I don't feel good after doom scrolling. So selfishly, I've just been writing a lot more. It feels good.
This makes me really super pumped. So I love this conversation. So what's the one you're most excited about right now? Like, what's the idea that you're most excited about? Because
honestly, the ones that I am most excited about are not resonating with people. Because I've been floating a few of them out there, and like people are like, no. And I get it.
Really?
I get it.
Which ones?
I just posted something this morning, and I just don't think it resonates with most people. And it was talking about how everybody says, like, hey, you need to surround yourself with a circle that's going to elevate you. Like, if, be around people who are already where you want to get, whether that's business, or you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or just get all negative people out of your life, right? I actually think, and that's conventional wisdom, I think it's bad advice. And so this is what my post was. Because, and I've done this, I've set my life up this way, but that is, it positions you to be in a way of interacting with people where it's self-serving. Like, I'm going to put people around me that can help me. And there's nothing wrong with that, so to speak. Like, that's why I go to a gym. I need to be around a community of people that are doing things that I struggle with. But there's a flip side to it where, if I view the world through lenses of like, what can I get out of it versus like, what can I give to it? Or like, if I'm around negative people, I'm fairly negative. I'm very negative, ask my wife. It's a struggle for me, right? So let's say I was like, I don't want to be around negative people myself. It's like, well, when I'm around negative people that are just like slightly more negative than me, it bothers me. And I understand the urge, like, I don't want to be around these people. But being bothered by that is good. Like, the things that bother you are good because it gives you a chance to like deal with it. It's bothering me because I have an issue inside that I have to deal with. And that's where the work is done. But anyway, this I may have lost you, but it's not a popular message, but I'm like so excited by some thoughts like that are just coming from the books that I'm reading, which are much more spiritual. I'm just on a kick of inner growth. And inner growth, it looks a lot different than conventional wisdom. And it looks a lot different than entrepreneurial wisdom and the whole groups that you and I are involved in on social media, which is all about expanding and growing and building wealth and blah, 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 blah. The more outer growth you have with things like that does not mean that you're growing inward. And in my life, I've grown the most inward when all the shit on the outside was falling apart.
Wow.
So it's like, but nobody wants to hear it or talk about it. I barely do, but I'm excited for this season to do it.
I mean, it's like beyond mature. Like, I'm sorry, but you're describing the person I want to be. A person that looks at a strong, a person with a strong inner self, but a person that looks around and says, I'm not going to play victim to these circumstances or these people, just because they're slightly negative or whatever, like I'm going to let it grow who I am. I think it takes a long time in life to get there.
Well, I think it either takes a long time or it takes being put in things that you don't want to be in but can't get out of. And that's why, like, an author I read, he says, like, survivors of, like, really tough things, whether it be like a natural disaster or a war or abuse, they mature at such an accelerated rate. Like, you could be a 20-year-old with a wisdom that surpasses most people if you've been through some stuff, right? So I'm coming out of a season of my life where I do not want to be in it, and I have had no way out of it, and it's like forced me to change the way I look at things.
Yeah, it's what grew us. I mean, when Libby and I first got married, she got cancer. I think you knew that story. Stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. Do you know this story?
No, I don't know this story. I would know if I had heard this before.
I've posted about it before, I think on like cancer awareness or something like that. But yeah, stage 4, went through 6 months of chemo, first newlyweds. Totally changed our life perspective.
Wow.
I mean, I had no, like, I still think about it most days from, you know, sometimes when we're fighting, I'm like, you're such an ass. Like, she had cancer. Which is kind of funny to think about. If she heard me saying that, she'd be like, yeah, you were a jerk yesterday. But yeah, we, you know, you're sitting in the waiting room and you get asked by, like, before her first chemo, someone walked by us and said, oh, are you guys here visiting someone? And I was like, God, I wish we were visiting someone. Like, no, we're here because she has cancer. And they're like, oh, wow. Because we just look super young. Like, I mean, just, it was weird. Every single symptom.
Like you guys grew as people through that?
Well, thank you for bringing me full circle. Yes, so we grew tremendously as people in thankfulness. Like that period after that where you're like, I'm just thankful to have breath in my lungs, and which sounds super cliche to say out loud, but it was like everything is crystal clear.
Well, and it's probably more of a question for your wife, but I'd be curious if she would, looking back, would say, like, you know what I got out of this from the thankfulness or whatever else she got out of it, you know, like maybe she would say, I wouldn't trade not having the cancer for what I have now. I just know in my life, like now looking back on the things that sucked the most, I'm like, yeah, I like what I got out of it, even though it sucked at the time. So it's crazy. It's crazy. And then we run around trying to get things we want in life and avoid the things we don't want when it's the opposite. I don't know. It's a mind bender.
I know. And she has said things like that before. You know, I think what I'm mostly struggling with right now is like, or at least my biggest complaint, and the reason I'm impressed with you and really look up to what you're doing, is I don't feel like I have time to focus on inner self. Like, I just feel like my life is chocked full of conversations, deals. Like, I'll get to work. You know, if I start at 8:30, the next thing I know, it's 6 p.m. And I have not thought about myself or inner growth or spiritual growth
but
for 1 second.
It's because you're young. You're younger than me.
Barely.
Like but these things get thrust upon you. And when you have your midlife crisis, that will change. And I pray you do, man. I hope you do. And it's going to be the best thing for you.
No, I mean, I feel that I have a good and healthy perspective. You know, I'm you have to be very careful when you say I'm self-aware. But I feel decently self-aware. And you might be the most self-aware internet personality that I know. I think.
Well, and this may be the truth that maybe you don't need a midlife crisis, and maybe I did, right? Because of the depth of my immaturity and self-centeredness and all of that.
Yeah, you got to keep bringing that into this sales life world, what we're doing. I mean, I think that's going to be the remarkable part of this. Like, there's going to be laughs, there's going to be strategy, there's going to be people that are like excited to be in this community, but there might actually be people that take steps into some really life-changing growth because of conversations like this.
I hope so. I think that would be, as we've talked about, that would be like satisfying, right? To impact people, impact people in a real way without like trying to get something from them, like I have nothing to sell you. It's like, I'm not asking you to hire me. It's just like, we're just sharing life.